A mother's embrace. A few years ago, I was in one of your seminars on a cruise to Alaska. In one session, you led a group regression in which you had us go back and relive our birth. I went back, felt myself in the womb and being delivered, and then the most amazing thing happened. I re-experienced being placed in my mother's arms for the first time. You see, my parents died 5 months apart from each other, when I was 8 years old. Because of the trauma of that, I have no memories of my mother. That day during the regression, you gave me back a very special memory. As you were talking the group through, I recall the thought, boy, that doctor is kind of cute, and then I was in my mother's arms and she was looking down at me, smiling. At that point you led the group onto a past life, but I thought, there is no way I am leaving her. I have not been with my mother for 43 years, and I am going to stay right here and enjoy this. And that is exactly what I did until you brought the group out of the regression. Before that experience I was a fairly well-functioning adult, but since then I have carried an extra glow in my heart that has translated into a calmness and confidence that wasn't there before. It is along the same lines of a small child, doubtful of her ability, who blossoms after the mother gives assurance of her love and support. Yesterday was my mother's birthday, she would have been 84. While I wasn't able to call her on the phone, I did communicate with her through a dream, and I give credit for that to the regression as well. The connection I made that day has left a little porthole open to the other side that I can access whenever I need my mom, and I am in gratitude forever for this amazing gift. Patricia Kupts, I am so blessed to be able to help people have these experiences. Prenatal and early infant memories have been validated over and over again by parents and others. These are real and accurate recollections. It is not difficult to retrieve these very early memories. I first help the person reach a deep level of concentration and relaxation. Then we go backward in time, back through adolescence, through childhood, and all the way to infancy and in utero states. I count in reverse from 5 to 1 as an image, a scene, a smell, or an event comes into focus in the person's mind. At first, the image may seem more like a snapshot or photo, although sometimes it may appear more like a movie. Sometimes there is no image but rather a feeling, a knowing. As I deepen the level even more, the scene, often accompanied by sensations, feelings, and emotions, becomes even clearer. We have arrived, and the wonderful reunions and memories remind us that love never ends, that our loved ones are alive in our pasts yet also in our futures. On those cold Alaskan waters a miracle was unfolding, even though I did not know it at the time. Patricia's life was forever changed. The grief that she had been carrying for 43 years was dissolving. A portal to the other side was opening. Reaching through that portal the first time was healing for Patricia and, even more wonderfully, it has now become second nature for her. Our loved ones reach back through that portal too, although we may not always be aware of it. They visit us, daily if need be, to express their love, to soothe our pain, and even, as Jessica discovered in the next story, to hold us in their arms and dance with us one last time. Dancing in the fields. Jessica, a schoolteacher in her 30s with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a soft-spoken voice, drove hours from Central Florida to see me in my office. She had had 2 children who were delivered via cesarean section when she became pregnant with her 3rd child, a healthy boy. She had opted to deliver Elliot naturally in her home, but during the process her uterus ruptured, the placenta detached, and the baby suffered from a fatal lack of oxygen as he was rushed to the hospital. He was immediately put on life support, but it was too late. He died only 10 days later. As Jessica told me her history, my heart sank. No one deserves to experience the loss of a child, surely, but the woman sitting in front of me was so gentle and kind that I couldn't imagine why such a devastating thing would have to happen to her. Neither could I imagine the death of my child, much less feeling the tremendous guilt that a decision I had made might have contributed to that outcome. Jessica had read my father's books and found solace in them. She was seeing another therapist who was helping her with the bereavement process. I was in awe of how well she was coping. I'd have considered it a success to simply get out of bed in the morning, put one foot in front of the other, and survive the day. It was evident that strength of steel lay under Jessica's sweet exterior. Nonetheless, it was as if she wore the pain on the outside of her body. I could see it, I could almost reach out and touch it. Its bottomless depth frightened me. I was a fairly new therapist, certainly new to hypnosis, and I feared that the trip down to my office might have been a complete waste of her time. What on earth could I say or do that could possibly alleviate Jessica's suffering? And what could even make a dent in that kind of pain? Jessica described the difficulties she'd had with her physicians when she had delivered her first 2 children. Her soft voice grew in edge as she spoke of her mistrust of them, of how medical errors had been made and of how, understandably, these errors had led her to choose a different method for bringing Elliot into the world. She had scrupulously researched the benefits and risks of a vaginal birth after cesareans. She could not have made a more informed decision, and from her history with her first 2 deliveries, it was clear why she had chosen as she did. The more we discussed Elliot, the more I tried to detach from her trauma, but I felt that I was right there with her, as if, while our bodies sat there talking, our souls were hovering on the ground together, staring at each other with sad, disbelieving eyes. Can life really get this painful? And how do you survive when it invariably does? As Jessica brought up the hypothetical scenario of having another child, her anger dissolved into sheer panic. What would be the right thing to do then? How could she trust the doctors again? What if whatever decision she made turned out to be the wrong one? She had given her past and her future much thought, and it was clear that questions about both caused her great distress. As I hypnotized Jessica and brought her to a past life, she first saw only vague colors, appearing as waves and dots. "It's all just lights," she said, and for the next 10 minutes it was all, indeed, just lights. "Oh no," I thought, literally turning my hands into prayer and staring up at the ceiling, thankful that my client's eyes were closed. "Angels, God, whoever is up there, you have to do better than that." I prayed before each client for help and healing energy, but that day it was no gentle request. Suddenly, in the midst of these pulsating light forms, the image of an apron appeared in Jessica's mind. "Thank you," I said to the sky, breathing a sigh of relief. Jessica saw herself as a young woman on a big wooden porch, like something out of Little House on the Prairie. She was leaning on a post, sweating from the summer sun and from physical exertion. The work was hard and stressful, a huge burden. Jessica could feel the tension in her neck and shoulders, not just from the manual labor but also from a crushing loneliness. She sensed that she wanted children and a family but did not have any. "It's all too heavy," she sighed. We moved ahead in time to that night, where the woman was lying in bed, contemplating reaching out for the Bible on her nightstand but too tired to make even that little comforting gesture. Jessica saw the woman sobbing, feeling sad and frustrated and restless all at once. She had a large house but overseeing it was an overwhelming task for her, and the rural area in which she lived was isolated, offering no friendships. The townspeople considered her to be so fortunate. She owned a big house, that great front porch, a cow. But she felt no happiness in any of these assets. Although she was only in her 20s, she felt, it seemed, too tired and sad to live. We moved ahead in time again, but it was more of the same, the woman, toiling away in the front yard, working so hard simply to survive this joyless existence. And then Jessica saw a little girl, dancing and twirling around the woman in the dirt. "The woman doesn't see her," she said, confused, "but the girl is just dancing, dancing away." Jessica saw a man, too, the woman's husband, standing off to the side of the porch. He and the girl were so close to the woman, loving her as she worked, loving her as she sat on the porch and cried, but she never knew they were there. Drowning in her pain, she was aware of nothing but loneliness. Where had these spirits come from? To find out, we moved back in time. There was an accident, a buggy that crashed when a horse slipped on some wet rocks. The cart, carrying the child and the husband, fell off, killing them instantly. The woman had not been inside, she had wanted to go with them, had planned on it, but for some reason at the last minute she hadn't. She had loved them so much and felt terribly guilty and responsible for their deaths. "But it wasn't your fault. It wasn't even the horse's fault. Sometimes accidents just happen," I said, thinking also of Elliot. Jessica nodded, tears in her eyes, but she didn't seem to believe it. "It sounds like you wish you'd been in there with them," I said in a soft voice, and she moaned, "Oh yes." The woman lived many long, lonely years. Throughout her days, she worked by the front porch where her husband watched her with nothing but love in his eyes, and her daughter, spinning into oblivion, danced right next to her every day of her life. As Jessica floated beyond her old body, she started shaking her head, as if in disbelief of how she had lived. "We are not supposed to be miserable," she said. There was so much good she could have done. The woman had been so inextricably bogged down in grief and loss that she had never recovered. Thinking of Jessica as she was today, I asked, but how could she have recovered from that kind of loss? So easily, Jessica answered, smiling, if she just could have seen them dancing around her. The little girl and the husband, faithfully showing up every day in the front yard, were trying to tell her that they were fine, that they loved her, and that they had never left her, but she could not see it. She heard, but she didn't have to. They were so happy, Jessica said. It was love, pure love, pouring out of them and stopping right there in front of her. And she just didn't get it. This was an extraordinary lesson to help relieve Jessica of some of her current feelings of grief. As unbelievable as it seemed given the trauma that she had recently experienced with her son, her suffering was optional, unnecessary. If she just could have seen the little girl dancing so close to her. If she only knew that Elliot was, most likely, still loving her from no farther than the air she breathed, she would never have cause to feel that unbearable pain again. The following day, in our session together, Jessica slipped in and out of numerous past lives. In one, she was the daughter of a kind of hermetic medicine man, a soul so wise and advanced beyond his years. She eventually had her own family but died young, leaving behind a small child whom she loved. Jessica felt that Elliot was the young child in that lifetime. It feels like he and I switched places this time. I left him early in that life, he left me early in this one. Oh, she said, realization dawning on her, in this life, he wasn't punishing me at all. He was just showing me what it feels like to be the one left behind, rather than the one leaving early. But love doesn't go away. We do, but love never does. She sensed that Elliot was also her beloved father in the regression. He seemed to have it all figured out, she said. He was so loving. Nothing bothered him. Everything he did was in gentleness and kindness, for the betterment of humanity. Jessica's lifetimes with Elliot were ancient, innumerable, arising throughout the years as their souls braided together again and again to teach, to learn, to love. It was no accident that he had appeared in her present life. He to learn, to love. It was no accident that he had appeared in her present life. He was intrinsically linked to her, a part of her, but the form, the relationship, the circumstances always varied. As she sat in front of me, Jessica's face completely changed. There were no lines of sadness, no weary eyes, only love, joy, even excitement. As odd as it sounds, she didn't even seem human anymore. With her fair coloring and her beatific expression, she truly looked like an angel, a blissful spirit, glowing with a peace beyond words. She was beaming, and the light transformed every part of her. It was the end of our time together. I didn't think Jessica could get any happier, which seemed almost perverse considering the reason why she had come to see me. It was incredible to witness. You do good work, I said to the sky. I closed the session by bringing Jessica to a peaceful wildflower field in her mind and having her visualize her guide joining her to give her guidance about how she could continue to heal even after she left the office. Jessica's guide, her wise and loving teacher, was, of course, Elliot. She imagined holding his little baby body, from which a bright light started shooting. Elliot opened his eyes. After the session, Jessica marveled at this fact. He was born brain dead, she said. I never got to see his eyes. In her mind, Elliot bopped her on the nose and winked at her, as if he was saying, gotcha. As if this whole thing, this whole tumble throughout lifetimes together, this endless bubbling up of deaths upon deaths, was nothing more than a cosmic joke. Here Jessica, as anyone would, suffered from the loss of a healthy baby suddenly dead in both brain and body, yet Elliot himself couldn't take it seriously. All he had to say about the matter was something like, my turn. Tag, you're it. To Jessica, Elliot the baby, who was now chucking her on the chin and winking at her, was clearly the adult and she the child. His was a soul so old and loving, very much an advanced teacher. As Jessica held him in her arms, his body started to disappear, dissolving into the bright light that grew stronger and stronger, larger and larger until he was so big, big way beyond bodies, and his light filled up the entire field. The wildflowers, the grass, and the enormous blue sky shone with his light. He was larger than she was, larger than anything she could even imagine. I had Jessica reflect back on her feelings of responsibility, knowing that a soul so vast it could encompass the entire world could never be snuffed out by a single decision, a single accident. She just laughed, as if the very question that she had not once stopped asking herself no longer made sense. Whose fault was his death? Mine, the doctor's, no one's. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Jessica then saw herself pregnant, and soon with the healthy baby in her arms in a hospital room. Elliot was not this child, but he was very much there with her, his light exploding. He is radiating the whole room, she breathed. It's as if every wall has light beams all over it. It is all him, all over. As Jessica held the new baby, Elliot held Jessica. He kissed the baby's head again and again. There was no sadness, no pain, only the purest love as Elliot protectively watched over them. Although Jessica was unsure if she and her husband even wanted more children, I recalled how she pored over every detail of birth plans, deliveries, and doctors as she thought about what might happen, what could happen, what did happen. I thought it would help her to know how the birth turned out, but she smiled as she brushed the question off as utterly irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Those are human details. To answer your question, I had a C-section, but it doesn't matter. I'm just nursing. She looked down at the baby in her arms, knowing full well how present Elliot was in the room and in their lives. I'm just nursing. Jessica had tears of joy in her eyes, I did too. I was in awe of Elliot's infinite soul and of his love. Nothing could hurt him, which meant that nothing could hurt any of us, either. What room is there for grief in love? What does the death of anyone even mean when we can be with them again in our minds, when we can hold their bodies again and they can hold us again, when we can finally look into eyes that we could never clearly see here on the earth? Our own eyes remain closed to all the love around us and we suffer as we imagine ourselves to be alone or left behind, when all we ever have to do is just open them to find our loved ones dancing with us there in the fields until the end of time. Amy Weiss. Amy has said it all and said it so well. If only we could see our departed loved ones dancing around us, continuing to love us, to protect us, to wait for us. Then our grief would be so much less. In my book Many Lives, Many Masters, I changed the name of the physician who had helped Catherine so much, and who had referred her to me. He is the one who unknowingly started this entire process, this discovery of past lives. I changed his name to Edward, for reasons of confidentiality. His real name was Elliot. Once, in a deeply hypnotized state, Catherine's head began to move from side to side. A spirit is looking, she told me. At you. Yes. Do you recognize the spirit? I'm not sure. I think it might be Edward. Edward had died during the previous year. Edward was truly ubiquitous. He seemed to be always around her. What did the spirit look like? Just white, like lights. He had no face, not like we know it, but I know it's he. Was he communicating at all with you? No, he was just watching. Was he listening to what I was saying? Yes, she whispered. But he's gone now. He just wanted to be sure I'm all right. I thought about the popular mythology of the guardian angel. Certainly Edward Elliot in the role of the hovering, loving spirit watching over her to make sure she was all right, approached such an angelic role. Soulmate, this is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.